Welcome to God's Sheep Testimony Tuesday. You're not just walking into a studio, you're stepping into purpose. This is a safe space where the sheep of God can come and testify His glory and remind the world that God is still in the blessing business. Your story matters. Your journey carries power. Your voice brings healing, not just to you, but to someone else who needs to hear it. Hello, world. Welcome to the stage today. It is me, your girl, Tatisha L. Phelps, but you can call me Ta. Ta-da! Because once you meet me, you'll never forget me, and that is the fact. I would like to welcome to the stage Earl Waller. How are you today? And thank you for coming in.
I am blessed. I appreciate you for having me. It's a blessing to be in company. We worked together before, so I'm super excited to kind of reconvene here after all this time.
Yes. Thank you, Earl. I appreciate you for entrusting me with your time, and I'm going to make good on it. So I'm going to just jump right on in. Let everybody know that this is God's Sheep Testimony Tuesday, where we come in and we just talk about the blessings of God and let people understand that God is still in the blessing business.
Amen.
In a world today where people might not even trust him, know him, understand him, or even want to give him a chance. But if they can hear what he's done for you, what he's done for me, and other people that we bring onto the stage, they may just go ahead and give him a try. What you think?
I
All
think it's a
right.
fact.
Well, let's jump right on into this. So, before Earl that sits before me today, can you take us on a journey? Who was Earl?
To be honest with you, I don't even know who I was, to be honest. I was going through a bunch of trials and tribulations, and I was one of those lost. I was one of those just trying to figure it out myself, trying to figure out where I was going left or right, up or down. And I was getting nowhere, trying a bunch of different things and never really got anywhere. So it's a complete 180 transformation for me personally. I can say that now, as opposed to back in 2018, when everything really started to change started to really fall or crumble for me in my life. Almost going on 10 years now, so 7 years strong in this new walk, this new faith, this new belief, this new spiritual journey that has really transformed who I am and who I'm becoming.
Okay. Well, take us on that journey. What did that look like when you talk about that crumble?
Yeah, so 2018, I'll just start off by saying I'm 34 now. And in 2018, I was 27 years old. And um, I was experiencing a lot of things health related because I was living young, wild, and free. I was in the streets. I was doing everything and that I wasn't supposed to be doing. I was doing everything but living for God. I was trying to figure out what life had for me, and not what the creator of life had for me. So it was a lot of things that I was doing, staying out late night, clubbing, drinking. I was dabbling in smoking, and I was just running the streets thinking I was invincible for the greater part of my life until God really stepped in. And I had always known him, but I didn't always listen to him. And
Mhm.
growing up in the church, my grandmother always told me, if you can't count on nobody else, you can count on him. But it's as I grew older, it was yada, 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 yada. Grandma, I know. But it was that moment of when I had my first panic attack dealing with anxiety. I had a panic attack, and that was kind of God's way of saying, okay, you might want to relax because your body is overdoing it. You're doing a lot right now. You probably need to chill out. I still ignored those signs. Once that panic attack passed, I was back to doing what Earl wanted to do, living the way Earl wanted to live. And then I had a serious health scare to where it hospitalized me. And then I ended up getting a pacemaker at 27. And kid you not, within 48 hours from the time I had the first panic attack, I had another panic attack. The second panic attack led me into a hospitalization. And 24 hours later, I was placed with a pacemaker all within a matter of a week. And that really began to wake me up. You don't realize that you're not invincible until you're either on death's bed or it's too late and you're gone. So for me, God gave me the chance to get right, to live right, to do right, and to really just slow things down. So that's what I did for the next 3 or 4 years and begin to really seek out how he wants me to live, what's his purpose for me in my life, and not what my own purpose is and what I want to become. Because I'm gonna be honest, I was young and wild. I wanted to be a rapper. I wanted to make music. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to go on tour. That's what I wanted to do. so,
That's right. Talk to
um,
that little boy who's watching that young man who wants to aspire to be a rapper. Like, not to,
yeah, I
not
mean,
to, not to say that it's not a good thing, right? Not to say that,
right,
right? But to be
right, right.
open minded. That there's
Yep.
so many. people that wanna do the
Right.
same thing.
Now, I mean, there's nothing wrong, chasing your dream, just realizing that, and again, I feel like if I had chased it with God at the forefront, things may have been different. But I feel like, with God, one lesson that I've learned that really has transformed me today is that givers gain. I was always keen on giving in the worst way, meaning I will do more. What can you give me? I will do more. How can you give me? What can you give me? What can I receive? So it was given from through the lens of recipient. I wanted to receive something from the giver. I wasn't the one giving. And if we think on scripture in biblical times and when Jesus lived, all Jesus did was give. And he said in his word, he was like, I come to be served. I don't come to be served, I come to serve. And as a result, here, if we look at Jesus Christ in the Bible now, we know, look at how much we worship him. Look at how much, we strive to be like him. We strive to be like just like Christ. But Jesus was a giver, just gave all 33 years of his life, all the way up until he gave his life. So for us to really realize the power in giving, we begin to unfold and manifest things in our lives, which is what I've done the last 2 years. I've given, 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 and I've gained so much without having to chase
Hmm.
those dreams and those hopes and those aspirations that I wanted to get. But it's
Heart
just taking
posture
a different
change.
approach. Yes, 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 yes,
It's the heart
yes. And
posture, right?
yes, that's man, I cannot stress it enough. You can run until you can't run it anymore and still not get what you feel like you deserve or what you think you deserve or it's really, and that was the journey. Figuring out what my purpose was, figuring out how to get it, and then surrendering who you are so that you can be given
Okay,
exactly
wait,
what is
wait, 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 because that you going too fast. Because that surrender word is a powerful word. Let's just take the people back because it might be some people who might not be where you are, right? They might not be spiritually mature, right? They might not be on that same Christian walk. They might just be
Mhm,
observing God or they might have disconnected from God. Let's talk
mhm.
about when you say you were in the world and you wanted to do things Earl way. Describe that so where a person who's watching can identify themselves to understand that this can happen for you too.
Yes, great question. So I want to ask and challenge that person. I would ask that person, are you where you want to be? And if the answer is no, how long have you been trying to get where you want to be? And chances are you hear people say all the time, I'm trying it all. I'm about to give up. And then you ask them, have you tried God? And then the last thing that they're saying is like, they're like, that don't work. How do you know? You
Right.
know, everything that you've tried that works hasn't worked, you know? So how do you know God doesn't work? You've never even given him a chance. He said, test me in this, in the Bible, that's scripture. And all things, he will pour out until you won't have room enough to receive. That's all scripturally based. But see, there's something about us. And I always tell my grandmother, I'm like, Grandma, it's so crazy to me that as I become more spiritually responsible and more observant in his word and more understanding of what he wants me to do and surrendering who I am to become who he wants me to be, I begin to see the fruit of the labor in which he has
Mm,
laid before me. And so many people, it's a simple, how are you doing that? I gave it to God. Like, oh, here you go with your God, but you're asking me and I'm telling you, but you refuse to listen to it. So for me, it's like I would ask that individual, how long has it been since you've been chasing this dream? Whose dream is it? Is it your dream for yourself? Or is it a dream that came from heaven? Is it a dream that came from God? What is it? How are you approaching it? If you're doing it all yourself, if you give it all your heart, you're gonna go into heart failure. So that's for me. Let go, let God, and allow Him to order your steps. And don't get discouraged even when it's not happening the way you think it should happen, because it was never your plan to begin with. You know,
come on.
that's the problem. That's the problem. We think our life is our plan. What we should have, we feel like we deserve things that was never ours to begin with. They say he knew you when you was in your mother's womb. So let him know you throughout life. So that's I would ask him those two questions. Long story short, how long have you been doing what you're doing? Are you happy with where you are? What have you done? And what's worked and what hasn't worked? And chances are they'll pretty much answer their questions. They'll answer their own question themselves with answering those questions.
So when you say you were drinking, partying, smoking,
Mhm.
when you were doing all those things and then you had the panic attack, right? Was it those things or that lifestyle that triggered that panic? What triggered that panic?
It was the overflow of life stressors and not having a way to vent or not really understanding or knowing how to vent effectively. I was going through things in life that I would just let them ball up and I would drink myself through them. I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic, but it was like, yo, I'm so stressed out about this. Well, let's turn up. you know, because I know turning up would ease my mind, would give me good company. I'll be around people where I kind of lose myself and become someone that I'm not. Someone that I wake up the next morning and be like, man, what the heck happened last night? Why was I on that? Why was I on one? You know?
It's a way of numbing.
Um, right. Yes, yes, yes. Facts.
Yeah.
But see,
'Cause that's that
another
real
point.
talk to that non-believer to understand. Like, I love us talking about Jesus, but that person who's not there yet need to understand that terminology, right? That
Mm,
numbness,
mm,
right? It's a numbness, right? That we gotta break through for them to be able to feel that
mhm,
intimacy, right? Because before
mhm,
we can get to the intimacy with Christ, we gotta crack something open. Something has
mhm,
to happen to
mhm.
trigger that moment,
Uh-huh.
right? For you, it was
Uh-huh.
the panic attack. So
Mhm.
after you had the panic attack, you realized the overwhelmness of life was happening and something got to be different. I don't know what, but something got to happen. Was it an instant change that happened? Was it a light that shined over you and God said, "Come on, Earl," or what happened?
Yes. Man, that's a deep question. I hope I don't get choked up again. So I remember I was sitting in my car at the time. My first panic attack was inside of my red Challenger that I had at the time a couple years ago. And it was in the middle of a major intersection and I fainted, passed out, woke up in the back of an ambulance, ended up in the hospital. That was the first panic attack I ever had. But it created a lot of PTSD being in cars, period, driving. So every time I would have to go to work, the days following that, it was hard for me to just get out the bed, get in the car, and go to work because to get to work, I had to go through the same intersection that I had the panic attack on. And so a lot of PTSD was triggered as a result of having a panic attack in that moment at that time. So I remember for the next 3 to 4 weeks, I was just forcing myself to just go to work. It was the hardest time of my life because your job don't wanna hear I'm having a panic attack, especially those who never experienced one or don't know how they feel. They're like, "We need you your best availability, your best ability is availability at these corporate locations." And if I wasn't there, my livelihood depended on that. Bills had to be paid, house had to be upkept, things of that nature. But me not being able to do it physically because of my mental kind of put me in a rut for the longest time. I ended up taking a leave of absence. But
So
I
can you
remember
pause
being
right there for 1 second?
yeah.
Because you said something that was very powerful, like how these jobs, they didn't really care, right? So
Mhm,
for the audience who may be listening, we hear it, we use it very loosely, especially since COVID. We talk about PTSD. Can you break that
mhm.
down in layman's terms for someone who's listening who may have heard the term but don't really understand?
What, PTSD?
Yes.
So it's post traumatic stress disorder. And it's pretty much experiencing, reliving something that you've lived one time. And now there are certain triggers that surround that type of situation. For me, if I had to bring it home, it would be every time because of my first panic attack was during this major intersection on my way to work. Every time I went through that major intersection, there was a trigger that went off for me. And it sent me into another panic attack. So it was like living in deja vu every single day, just because you have a mental roadblock now preventing you from getting from point A to B because of what happened at a certain spot between A and B.
Right.
If A, it was 8.5, you once you hit that point five, you were not going to see B until you overcame whatever it was that you were had lived, whether it was an hour prior, days prior, weeks prior, years prior, and that will stick with some people, for years. It'll stick with people for months, for days, for weeks, for years, even until they learn the coping mechanisms that go around and surround mental health. You can do it, but you have to first feel comfortable and confident in seeking help and understanding that you're not in whatever you're dealing with by yourself. And there's ways to overcome that. But in lamest terms, it's just reliving the same thing that you dread after it's happened.
All right, yeah. Because I think a lot of people, they fall short, they hear it, and we just use it, just
Hmm.
mildly, a lot of
Yeah.
people,
Yeah. Right.
they just say it, right? But trauma is real.
Hmm.
Every time you hit that same marker, the same experience happened just like it just happened yesterday, whether it's 50 years ago, 5 minutes ago, it's the
Yes.
same situation, right? All right, so
Yes.
now we done identified, that it's a panic attack. To take us on that journey of when you got that pacemaker. Now you're learning this panic attack has now took you said 27, right?
Yes.
At 27, at this young age, you identified you have to have a pacemaker. How did you cope with that? How did you feel?
And well, let me kind of backtrack a little bit to that one moment before I got to um, having the pacemaker placed? Because you asked me, was it like a let me switch up, or was it like was I
Yeah,
resistance to it?
yeah.
For me, I was sitting in my car, and I remember, and I'm actually really glad we're having a testimony type of podcast because I remember in the Bible it says pray without ceasing. A lot of people get construed with how to pray. There's a right and wrong way to pray. A prayer is a sincere desire from the heart. In that day, I was sitting outside of my job in my Challenger, and I remember just saying, "God, what the heck are you doing to me? Why all of a sudden my life has changed like this?" And I cried harder than I think I've ever cried over anything in my life, and just
Hmm.
asked him to fix what was going on. And I mean, ugly cry. When I went to work, my eyes was puffy. Everything was like it was bad, but I had to surrender who I was. And I think in that moment, when I got out that car that day, it felt different than I have ever felt getting out of the car during that time. I went in there. I didn't have by the grace of God, God is my witness. I didn't have a single problem with talking to people, customers. Prior to that, whenever I was talking to customers, I thought I was going to go into full blown panic attack. I was like, oh man, I feel it right there on my shoulder. Anybody who's ever had a panic attack, you know the feeling I'm talking about. Well, it was there. It was there the whole time. And that day, I didn't feel anything. Like, I didn't feel. It was almost like I'll take it. I don't care if I don't feel anything. But it was, I think, me turning that corner because of the surrendering I did, that type of
That's
prayer I did in that car that day. So
that's
I just
something.
want to
That's something.
I really want to touch on that. This is super important. And that was enough for me to realize, okay, he is real. I knew he was real, but now he is real because nothing that I did different that morning could have led to what I felt that day. And that was the beginning of my healing process. But to your point, when the pacemaker was placed, man, they called me that morning and they was like, and mind you, I lived an hour away from where I had the procedure done. They called me and they were like, that meant I had to drive, y'all. I had to drive. Um, so
Intersection.
yup, it was bad. But they called me and said, "Listen, you did have a panic attack, and what was more concerning." And I'm gonna tell you how God worked. Little insert here. Prior to having the panic attack, prior to having this call from this doctor, I was living in a town called Marble Falls, Horseshoe Bay, Texas. I had went to their hospitals at least 10 times between the time I had a pacemaker placed and the time I had my first panic attack. Every time I went there, they told me, Earl, there is nothing wrong with you. You're
Mm.
fine. You had a panic attack. It's common. We see it. Your vitals are all looking good. Everything looks good. There's nothing going on. We're sorry that you're experiencing these, but you really don't have to keep coming back because we're going to tell you the same thing. That's what those hospitals told me. One night I was laying in bed. I'm gonna tell you, this is where I get the chills, and this is where I really choke up. So this is gonna be kind of hard for me, y'all. Just let y'all know. One day I was laying in bed, and I said, "I'm gonna go to a different hospital." I said, "I'm gonna drive to my parents' house, which is an hour away." I said, "Because there's something. I've lived 27 years in this body, and I've never had this happen." Oh, I went to a different hospital, and the gentleman in there, I wish to this day I can find out what his name was, but I never found him again. I feel like it was God sent, heaven sent, an angel connected me to all the machines, and he said, "Listen, yes, you are having panic attacks. But what's alarming to me, Mr. Waller, is that you're passing out. Why are you passing out? What is going on? Panic attacks don't result in people fainting. They race your heart. So what I want to do, regardless of what happens here tonight, I'm going to admit you, and I want you to know that before you leave this hospital, we will figure out what's going on. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." That night, I don't know why he was telling me this, and I'm kind of getting paranoid. I'm like, "Why are you saying nothing's gonna happen to me tonight? Like, what's going on in my heart?" I am broken. I'm at my wit's end because this had been happening for weeks. I told you 10 times before I got the pacemaker. I've been in hospitals. I kid you not, right hand to the man at 2 o'clock in the morning. I wake up, can't breathe. I can't breathe at all. I press the emergency red button, and the next thing I know, or I'm seeing like a tunnel vision going, like it's going black. And then people ran in. All I remember is pumping with atropine, blue, cold blue. I remember hearing all these noises, but things are
Mhm.
going black. And the gentleman that said the voice that said pumping with atropine was a gentleman from 4 hours earlier that said he would not let nothing happen to me.
Huh.
And he had ran from 6 floors up, from 6 floors down to come there and pump me with that atropine. He was the head charge nurse that night. It could have been anyone else. I could have been home that night. There were so many things that could have happened that didn't happen. He could have not been my nurse. I could have been home. I could have said, you know what, I'm fine, listen to the doctors. But I continue to advocate for me and who I am and why what I'm experiencing. And it led to them monitoring me overnight, then pumping me with atropine because my heart dropped down to 29 beats per minute. and they were able to get it restarted. But that raised curiosity, that raised red flags. Why did that happen? Oh, I left the next morning. They reviewed my heart activity throughout the night. I was having multiple episodes where my heart was stopping throughout the night, 3 or 4 seconds at a time. 24 hours later, they called me the next morning and said, "Hey, Earl, based on the study last night, we think it's best you get a pacemaker. Can you get in here the very next morning?"
Oh.
So I had to go the next morning and I had a pacemaker placed that day. But all that to say this, God puts people in your path. He does things on purpose. Don't be afraid to advocate for who you are. Don't be afraid to speak up on what doesn't feel right just because of the judgment that passed by they're humans too. These people that you're talking to are all human. So at the end of the day, advocate for yourself and know if you feel off, make that known. If a thought crosses your mind, act on it.
And not only
Uh,
that, I think about, right? Well, now when we're talking about this transition, right? This surrender. Think
mhm.
about when you said you were sitting in the parking lot of your job, I believe, and you said you were sitting in the pacemaker and you started just talking to God and you said you surrendered, right?
Yeah.
In that very moment, right?
Mhm.
God said, okay, I'm gonna try you. This is how I look at it. Now you
Yes.
took black, right? He said, let me see if he gonna really stick with what he's saying. Now
Yes. Yeah.
another level. Right? He challenged you in a whole nother way because now, even though you surrendered and you was in that moment, because what I do know is I don't care what religion people are.
Mm,
When life start lifing, people
mm.
all of a sudden need to know how to say, Lord, help me. Right?
Yes.
They
Amen.
know that it
Amen.
becomes a natural line that we say, we speak, right? But do we honestly mean it? So in that moment, now you understand that you surrendered to God, you gave him your word, you standing on business. Are you?
Mm,
Are you standing
mm,
on business?
It sounds good to say. It sounds
It
good.
sounds, are you standing on business? Tell the people, are you?
Yeah, now I am listen, man. Every opportunity that I get, I'm talking about how good he is. I'm talking about what he can do. I'm going to church. I'm taking my family to church. Every night we read in the Bible. We're doing things, say faith without works is dead. So yes, I believe, but what actionable steps are we taking, to prove who we are, to prove what we believe in, to prove the hardest people say it's so hard. That's the literally to take the steps you don't see the next step to is the epitome of faith. You know, you're not gonna see what God has for you if you don't put anything into God. So you have to surrender and believe that whatever it is that you're going through will be okay. If you seek about God the right way, if you seek the kingdom first. I wasn't seeking the kingdom first. I was seeking everything down here with me
Yeah.
before the kingdom. So seek him first and things will begin to change. I inadvertently seeked him in that prayer in that moment. Like for me, I was like, what else am I gonna do? The medication wasn't working, the therapy wasn't working, the counselor wasn't working, all these different things wasn't working for me personally. And it was the ugly cry, it was the breakdown, it was the surrender, it was the acknowledgement. We serve a selfish God. So it was the acknowledgement of his presence over my life that once it happened, I think Walter Payton said it. He was like, somebody asked him, "Are you afraid to die?" He was like, "Of course, I never died before." So it's a fear. It's a fear. It's a
So
fear
good.
of yes, yes, yes. So I would encourage, I'm standing on my life is a true testimony. I'm a living testimony to his goodness and what he can do because had I not surrendered, had I not did that, I'm a firm believer that I know for a fact I would not be here.
Right.
If I stayed home that night, there's no atropine in my kitchen cabinet. So being ordered, having him order your steps, do those things. Listen to that intuition because y'all listen to the other voice. We listen to the other voice, the voice that tells us to go drink, tells us to go to smoke, to go
Right.
clubbing. We listen to those voices, because it's something that we want to do. So,
So
so
let me ask you another question though, really. So
okay,
if was there any point, right? So yeah, we surrendered to God. It's easy for us to say. We're going on this transition. We do waver. Like people need to understand we do waver.
hundred
It's
percent,
it's not
100%.
easy. Was there any time in this transition that you felt like, "Why me? I'm still young. Like, I still wanna do these things." Like, what did that was that's your whole, that's a whole time frame that you're still living, growing, learning yourself, developing. What did that look
Mhm.
like?
Excuse my French, hell. It's just because to your point, I'm young, and that's what ate me. I was young I'm still young, but I was younger at the time. It ate me alive because the doctor started telling me, and I haven't even really hit on what happened a couple months ago. That really, to your point, we waver. I went on the path where I got the pacemaker. Then just this year alone in April, they saw an episode of AFib, atrial fibrillation happening in my heart. I mean, it was like, God, like what is going on? Like here I am. So the devil will try to punch in where there's work to be done. But
Mhm.
standing on 10, believing that he'll bring you through it like he brought you through the last time is so powerful. But to answer your question, yes, I'm 27. Why are you giving me a pacemaker? I thought pacemakers for people that was on their way to the grave or, one foot on the banana peel, the other foot on ground. I thought that was for older people. Like, I didn't think people that young would get pacemakers. I thought it was the end all. I'm like, now they're telling me I need to take medication for the rest of my life. That medication cannot be taken with alcohol. I'm like, I'm in my golden years. Like, what are we doing? Like, why am I having to do all of this? Like, what is it? But again, like I said at the beginning, there's a purpose in our lives that I feel like God has placed into our lives for a reason. Our job is to figure out what that purpose is and then walk in it. And what you do, the life that He has for you, even if it doesn't look like the life you want for yourself, will be 10 times greater than anything in which you feel like is for you. So I'm so where I am right now. I can't even all things considered, the eighth episode, the pacemaker, man, the medication, all of this, you still find reason to smile
Yeah.
because and I was stressed, irritated, annoyed, frustrated, drinking, smoking. Like it's a totally different, life whenever again we seek first the kingdom. And it's been up. But yes, I was there 100%. I was
And
there
all those
100%
things
for years.
numbed you from feeling
Yes.
the goodness of God.
Yes, that's
That that that's just so awesome. So let's go ahead and transition over and let's just move into, okay, now we're here. We've
Mhm.
accepted, we've surrendered, we're going through, we got the pacemaker, everything is going on now, right? We're trusting the walk. Where are you? When you found this purpose, what was it?
Giving, and it sounds so cliche. Why is a gentleman told me it 3 or 4 months ago when I was really trying to I think it was a year ago, actually. I was really running my PR firm, and even when I first to your point, there was that waiver. Even when I first launched it, I said, "Man, how do I get more money?" I started slipping back into the old ways, and I'm like, "How do I get more?" Nobody's buying media, nobody's buying press. I need to get this business off the ground. And a gentleman came in my life, and he called me. He was like, "Listen, Earl, I see what you're doing, brother. I like what you're doing. I love it." He was like, "But I'm gonna tell you something. You take with it a grain of salt. Do whatever you feel see fit." He said, the true key to success is giving from a place that you don't feel like you have, and knowing that God will give you a return. I
Mhm.
forgot heard it. It was powerful, and I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I'm human. I said, "Man, I you trying to get a free magazine placement. I'm not finna" like, that was my thought. Like, that was I was like, "I'm just launching this business. We not finna go down that path." But, I can say that that really was a shift in my mental when I continued to pray, and I think God matured my mind enough to believe that, or if you give what they have for you in return, is doesn't matter because the more I begin to give, like now, my life now, as I've been giving, I'm not sure if you saw, but I'm really heavy on social media in terms of like doing food reviews and stuff for businesses, where I just travel the country or travel all around doing food reviews, and I don't talk money at all. And because of my influence on social media, restaurants are selling out. And because they're selling out, brands are calling me. I'm not seeking these brands. I'm not seeking the opportunities. They're calling me saying, "Hey, we saw you have this. We saw you did that. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing that. We love to have you do this. It's just so much that I can't really receive. Like I'm doing the same thing, being people oriented, connecting with people, helping businesses, but businesses are just coming back, and all I'm doing is traveling, eating, and just living. Like the PR stuff is booming because now businesses
Best
want to
life.
do my PR side. You said what?
Just living your best life.
Yes, and I haven't thought or felt the need to want to make an extra dollar, but dollars come. This comes when, again, you change the mindset, you shift from gain, gain, gain to give, give, give. Even when you don't feel like you get nothing back in return, it's
Yeah.
all in due time. It'll
It's
come
kind of
back.
like what the Bible said about tithing, right?
Yes,
Giving
yes.
him the first fruit, giving him the first fruit,
The
right?
first fruit, the first,
First
like the
fruit.
first. And I don't care. My pastor said something powerful. He was like, "Listen, somebody came up to me and gave me some money they felt that I owed. They felt they owed me." He said, "You get what I said? They felt they owed me. I never said they owed me anything." And he was like, "They gave me some money in the grocery store, and I was actually going to buy something for my household. And because our God wants the tithing of the first fruit, spent money from a different source because I hadn't given him the first fruit of this new source. And I was like, oh man, he doing it like that. I was like, this brother, like we don't that's when you hit a certain level of spiritual maturity. And I didn't even know. I'm like, I didn't give my 10% this past Sunday. He was like, you didn't give him 10% of that, what you just got just there. And I never thought about that. He was like, that's the first of that distribution of that money. I was like, man, so that changed my thought process now. Whenever I make anything, there's my 10%, you know. But it's just that spiritual
With the
maturity.
spiritual maturity, it comes, and this is where I am in my season, right? It's teaching
Mhm.
intention, right? We have to be more
Mm,
intentional, right?
mm,
When you
mm.
grow, you learn to be more intentional because your conscience begin to bother you. Like, wait a minute,
Yep.
wait, right? But that comes in due time, right? That comes with the studying of
Yes.
the word, the growing, right? That
Yes.
purpose. When you find that purpose, and I just wanna just go back just a little bit because I'm hearing your golden years, what you thought was your golden years was not, because you're in your golden years right now, right? And, I
Yes.
just wanna let the audience know how you and I met. After you experienced all these things, I was dealing with something on social media because I don't like social media, and I happened to run across Earl on Clubhouse, and he was
Mhm.
doing mental health. So
Yeah.
tell them how you initiated, your path with getting to where you are with your mental health and those type things,
Mm.
right? Because we missed that piece.
Yeah, we did. We did. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys, my community really, people have this negative connotation towards social media, those who don't understand it and those who do understand it but feel like it's not beneficial. It's really in the way you approach things. I can honest to God tell you guys that vulnerability is what really took me to a different level. Just being vulnerable across social media. To Todd's point, I was on Clubhouse, and that was pretty much the start of my healing process, building a community on that platform that I could live by three principles: love, laughter, and unity. I always say if you can laugh together, you can cry together, but most people won't cry together because it makes them too vulnerable. But there's so
Mm,
much power in being vulnerable, because vulnerability saves lives. And what
yes.
I mean by that is somebody who may be contemplating suicide, if you just make yourself vulnerable enough to speak on what you've lived and where you are and what you're going through, chances are the right person hears that. You just saved someone's dash, which is literally what this means, living that dash between those two dates, birth and death. So for me, it's like using the platform, using social media to create a community that relates with you, that connects with you, that laughs with you, that cries with you, that gives with you, that gains with you, of individuals who have the same mindset, the same mentality as you to make better of the situation. I don't want to say make light of it, but again, I think Kevin Hart said, laugh at my pain. There is power in laughter, you know? There's a way to do it without offending anyone or triggering anyone, and you have to find that, and it's there. So using social media, using platforms like that to really make yourself vulnerable. And even today, even with my food reviews, I've kind of married everything: the community, the unity, the love, the laughter, and I use those in my food reviews that have taken me to places that I feel like without social media, I know without social media wouldn't be possible. So that's kind of my journey, and the shift in how I view social media really transformed not only my life, but the life of so many others.
Absolutely, and it helped me, like, I would say for us, right? It helped
Mhm.
me to understand when I'm ready to give up, not to give up because my goal is to help people understand that your story is not for you, right? Your story is for someone else. You go through the heartaches, the pain, right? The labor of it all, right? But it's so that you can birth something, right? And now that I'm watching you, right? I'm looking at how you have evolved and elevated, and I'm looking
Right.
at when you was in this place, right? But again, because mental health gives a derogatory, people look at it as, oh, it's negative, right? But now it took all of those different levels,
Mhm.
right? For you to actually really walk into who you are. That was your birthing season. You were nesting, right? You went
Yes,
through all
yes.
these different levels. I don't want to tell your story, but he started with TikTok, right? You were doing
Right,
TikTok reviews and
right,
and you
right.
kept shifting to now everything, right? If it wasn't for the panic attack,
Yep, yep.
you wouldn't have known any of
Yeah.
that.
No, 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 and the credit to you because you came in my life at a very pivotal time. If you remember back when we first spoke about the publishing of the book that you helped me publish, or you helped me self-publish, like you did the majority, like 90% of everything. I just wrote my story and told my story. But that book took me on an emotional roller coaster that I never knew I needed, in a way that I never knew I needed to go on, you know? So connecting with you and you helping me publish that book, get that book out there, get my story out there, opened up pathways and allowed me to vent. It was an emotional freaking roller coaster that was scary every day I put that pen to paper, but it allowed me to create an outlet for myself that not only told my story verbally, but in a written form. You know, that now when I look back and I grab that book and I just sit there and I read the book, I'm like, man, I was in a really dark place, but it allows me to see where I am now. So the story of individuals, and you may not know this, but you sparked the initiative behind even my PR. My PR agency is called the Story First Initiative. You know, I am allowing business owners to tell their story and I'm positioning it and framing it in a way that's like people buy from those they know, like, and trust you. How do they start to know, like, and trust you? You tell your story. So
Right.
that whole Story First initiative was on the premise of, to your point, the different phases I went through in life, which included writing the book, which is my story. So that was pivotal. So everything that you're going through, you have to start somewhere, right? Not start within, you know. So
And
that's
also, I just want you to be able to just speak on the experience because a lot of my guests may not have even experienced me as the book coach, right?
Mhm.
Uh, I want people to really understand that side that we're not just writing.
No, no,
We're writing.
no, 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 because there were times where I would write something and then you would challenge the thought process behind writing it. I would write it to get it out and get it over with. And then there would be times where I would be like, well, I'm thinking in my mind, I said it. This is what I thought. But then you're like, no, well, how did that, and you would peel back layers of the onion that would make you cry more and more and more and more and more. But the core of what you're writing is what needs to be exposed. You know, you have to put that core, you have to find that seed that made that onion grow. Because if you continue to have those layers, you continue to have those layers that you're not revealing. Only thing you're doing is putting a band-aid and letting it heal, but the core of it is still dirty. You didn't clean it, you didn't rub. Like there's nothing going on to really heal there. My
I like to
experience with
say
that,
coach,
yes, 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 yes.
right? And I just wanted to tap into that really quick because my goal is to teach people how writing is so powerful. Writing will take you on a journey that will help you open up so many doors to help you again pull those layers back to find out who you really are, right?
Mhm.
Because when you sit in your thoughts, you learn about a human being that you never even met, right? You
Right, right,
learn this person, you don't even understand your power, right?
right,
And and
right.
and once you write it, you can articulate it even easier.
And people have this, that's so valid. People have this misconception that what am I ever gonna become? This little old me. There are days where I sit in my lab here, or in my living room or in my car, and I'm like, I'm having a meet and greet next week, or on the 10th of January for everyone who supports me on social media. The venue can only hold 100 people, and there's 190 people who have registered in 48 hours. And I sit there and I'm thinking to myself, these people are coming from around the world to meet me. Who the heck am I? How did we get here? How did we get to this position from the hospital bed to here, having a meet and greet where I'm doing sponsors, I'm giving stuff away. I'm all of this stuff with different people that I created on a community of social media. No one I saw in real life in person. But that all stems from the power of being you, being unique. All of us have greatness within us, but some of us never give birth. How do you give birth to the greatness within you? You have to be able to make yourself vulnerable, tell your story, and relate, connect, and build with the next person that's probably going through the same thing that you're going through. But because nobody is willing to pull the tape off their mouth, everyone is sitting there building up, more stressors, more anxiety. But there's greatness within us all. Just if I can encourage you to do one thing, to let it out, to give birth to the greatness that lives within you, because you'd be very surprised what comes from that. And you're a perfect person to connect with to get that story out there. Are you still doing book coaching and stuff? Or
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I am still doing books. I wouldn't do anything other than this is the
okay,
heart of it. Being able to help people just get online, being able
you're
to
right.
come on and testify. Hopefully, will graduate them into wanting to take it another step further because
Yes.
people are listening, people are watching. I don't care if it's 1 or 2 people to
Yes.
220 people. Someone will be able to identify with the guests, right? Because everybody has a story to tell. Everybody's going through something, right? And
Yes.
everybody is not a perfect match, right? But there will be someone through the journey that you will be able
Yes.
to relate
Yes.
with. So I encourage everybody to continue to share their story, tell their truth, and find their purpose. So let's just close this out. Is there anything that you had to hold on to, like a song, a prayer, a scripture, as you were going through?
Philippians 4:13. I have that on my body. I also have it up in my bedroom. I also have it behind my computer. I have it. These little reminders, these little tokens that remind you of your day to day in my car, because these are all places that I frequent. So to keep that reminder, the one on my arm is, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Him who give me the strength. Is a constant reminder for me to keep going, regardless of what I'm going through. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast episode, it's like the devil wouldn't punch in where there's no work to be done. So if the devil is punching, if the devil is knocking at your door, then you're doing something that's right. You just have to continue to do what you know to be true to you and to God, and everything else will work itself out. Don't worry about the naysayers. Don't worry about those who have never experienced what you're experiencing or what you're going through, because like Tosh said, everyone has their own story. Your truth won't be the next person's truth, but that's okay. That doesn't mean you're living a lie. You know what I'm saying? So continue to live what you know to be true to you, true to God, and the rest will take care of itself. I don't care what it comes from, friends, families, confidant. I don't care who it is. The only person you live to satisfy is the one that created you. Not, yeah. From I'm not talking about creating you in the bedroom. I'm talking about creating you from beginning.
Come on. Look, before you was even in your mother's womb, right?
Yes, that one.
That
So,
one.
but
So
thank you.
before we close out, I just want you to be able to tell people who is Earl Waller, where they can find you, if they wanted to connect with you, what all those good things are.
Social media, I am just Earl on TikTok. I am just Earl Instagram. I am just Earl Facebook. Earl Waller on Facebook. At I am just Earl on TikTok. At I am just Earl on Instagram. And at I am just Earl on YouTube. So I am just Earl. Spell the word out. Don't do I apostrophe M. IAMJUSTEARL.
Thank you so much for coming, Earl. I am enjoying watching your growth, and I thank you for entrusting me with your time. And that
Thank
is
you so much, Todd. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings, everyone.
You've heard the testimony. Remember, every brand has a story, and every story has a brand. We'll see you here every third Tuesday as we testify God's glory. Thanks for watching.